achieved.
So I have been talking about doing this for a long time now, off and on, and basically, I went and watched several classes. I actually participated earlier today. I actually participated in my first and certainly not last Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. It was a lot of fun. It was just a fundamentals course. So all we were working on was some basic positioning and movement things on the mat, and then eventually working on some side control and maintaining body pressure when switching up positions. And yeah, generally speaking, I enjoyed it. It was exhausting. I sweat like a motherfucker, which is probably a good thing. I certainly intend to go back. Baby steps. I look at it from the standpoint of I have absolutely no physical. Like there was one positioning or one movement thing where I just could not get my body to do what I wanted it to do. It just wasn't there. It's not like it was weird. It was just like the body would not do it. It's like brains telling the body to do this. It's like, nope, not happening. We'll get there eventually. But baby steps, that's all I can say. And I enjoyed myself. It was a good time. I kind of harkened back to when I used to work on the farm, and it was like after the first few minutes of doing stuff, I was like, holy shit, how am I going to last the rest of this class? And then eventually your body kind of gets into a rhythm and you're fine. The exhaustion goes away and you're sweaty and gross, but you survive. My friend who was there came out at the end. She showed me something, a top positions in a side control, and it's just, holy shit. It's not about size and strength. It's about technique, technique and skill that sets you apart from the rest of them. And I was very impressed. One of the guys I was working with, just a white belt, and he had top position pressure on, and it was what it was. It wasn't super tight. And then she put pressure on, and holy fuck, I felt like my head was going to pop off. So that was damn impressive. So yeah, I look forward to going back out again. I definitely want to continue to commit and see what I can come up with over the next couple of weeks and months, and I'll hopefully keep giving you guys updates. But speaking of which, welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Night 118, which will take place in Poland and feature 4 main card fights, all of which we'll be breaking down for you on this episode of the show. All of my preliminary picks, as per usual, will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. So will the bet packs. Now, I'm coming off a really odd show. At UFC 216, I went 3-5 with 2 draws. There were multiple fights pulled off the card. And despite going 3-5, actually my big bankroll bet pack actually made a few units, like 3 or 4 units, because the multiple fights that were either pulled off the card or were draws were voided, and I still won a couple of key fights. So I made a few units. So hey, it wasn't a good night. It was not a terrible night as bad as it could have been. Either way, I'll put the work in again this week and hopefully turn out with some a decent return for you guys. And on that note, let's get to our first main card prediction. In the first fight of the night, we're in the UFC's light heavyweight division as Poland's own Oskar Piechota, undefeated 9-0, I'm possibly butchering that name, taking on Johnny Bravo Wilson, currently holding a record of 7 wins and 2 losses. Now, Wilson has lost back-to-back fights after starting his career undefeated for 7 consecutive victories. He also included a win in his UFC debut. He comes into the matchup having sat out over a year from competition. Now, for Piechota, he's an undefeated Polish fighter fighting at home, which is fantastic for him. He's already 2-0 in 2017 with his last 3 opponents holding a combined record of 39-24, so both experience and winning records, which is pretty solid. Physically, Wilson 2 inches taller. Piechota actually normally competes at middleweight, which a lot of people expect him to cut back down to after he's got in here. He is 3 years younger than Johnny Bravo. Now, the first thing to note with Wilson, and it's you see some of these fighters, he fought in the Gladiator Challenge organization, and that organization has a reputation for pitting fighters against very much overmatched opponents that they blow out of the water and look to get them, help, propel them into the UFC by, with those mismatches and very much padded records. The last 4 opponents he fought in the organization were a combined 4-12. And then when he came into the UFC, he fought Dempsey. And Dempsey, not exactly a world beater, knocked him out, so certainly helped him get off to a good start. But ever since, things have gone downhill a little bit. He has 6 wins by knockout, 5 coming in the opening round. He has gone out of the first round just 4 times in his career with a 2-2 record. As he KO'd Chris Dempsey in his last fight with a big right hand. He dropped Henrique da Silva with a couple of hard lefts in a fight that he was having some success in early. He tends to lead with his left hand, throws primarily single strikes, will follow with an uppercut if he does opt to mix in a second technique. As I said, he lands hard straight left, single strikes for the most part. I did see him in his last fight throw a quick combination, end it with a low kick. I really like that technique, but he doesn't throw it enough to make it count for much of anything. And the big thing is he tends to slow down in fights. Against Henrique da Silva, he simply slowed down after the early goings and got himself in some trouble and ultimately got finished. When he fought Jon Kuntalaba, he was getting tagged early in that matchup and being forced on his back foot. He wasn't dealing with the pressure very much at all. And again, it just comes down to how do you do it? He's been a front runner all of his career. You're either struggling to find an answer and stop an opponent from moving forward, or in the sense of the De Silva fight, you're just exhausted. You don't know what to deal with because you're not used to fighting guys who aren't going to go away after the first couple punches land. Now, for Piechota, he has 5 wins by submission, 4 knockout victories. So that's pretty solid. 2 knockouts in his last 2 fights inside the opening 40 seconds, I think. So it shows his striking is certainly coming along. He has 1 draw in his career, which is the only time he's gone 3 rounds in a fight. Now, he has a pretty good grappling game, strong submission base. He will attack from anywhere, top or bottom position. His striking has certainly come a long way as we see those knockouts in recent fights. He will use his jab very effectively, and his counter striking is certainly improving. One of his most recent victories, he landed a nice flurry on the cage to stun his opponent, and then a massive left high kick for the finish to knock his opponent out cold. Very impressive. The other thing I like the way, once he gets his opponent backed up, he will strike, or he'll change levels for takedowns. He'll do that from the clinch primarily. He will also pull guard, and I saw him pull guard against an opponent, and then quickly offer a very well-executed sweep. It was almost like boom. It was just like it was all a chain of events. Pull guard, down on the mat, and boom, sweep into top position. He will attack his opponent's legs, but the majority of his submission victories for his career have come by some form of choke. Now, first and foremost, Piechota's moving up from middleweight. He should have a speed advantage and superior cardio over Wilson. Wilson, he's coming off a long layoff. He's fighting overseas in enemy territory, all tough things to deal with. And his cardio has been a major issue. So that layoff and that unfamiliar place to fight certainly are not positive things going in his favor. Piechota has more wins to win this fight. That's just the way to look at it. He has a greater window of opportunity to win the fight, and he certainly has more techniques. The size of Wilson could be an issue, but success should find Piechota once Wilson starts to slow down after the initial opening round. And my prediction is Oskar Piechota to defeat Jonathan Wilson. I'll take Piechota by submission. Fight number 2 in the main card also takes place in the UFC's light heavyweight division as Poland's own Jan Blachowicz, currently holding a record of 19 wins and 7 losses, takes on the Brown Bear Devin Clark of the United States, sitting with a record of 8 wins, 1 defeat, and no draws. Now, Clark, he officially debuted in the UFC at middleweight after fighting at light heavyweight all of his career. He was knocked out in that fight. He has since gone back up to 205 pounds and has won 2 consecutive bouts. For Blachowicz, he also made a very successful debut, but he has lost 4 of his last 5 fights since. 4 losses, all coming on the scorecards, and he's fought in Poland once in the UFC, losing a match to Jimmy Manuwa. Physically, Jan Blachowicz, 2 inches taller, he'll have a 3-inch reach advantage, but Clark is the younger man by 7 years. Clark, 3 wins by knockout, 2 submission victories. He is 6-0 in the scorecards for a record. He's got good power in his hands, and he's fairly quick. He's got some decent speed. He mixes together striking and clinch control. He did that against Josh Stansberry fairly effectively, and he showed some good takedown defense in that fight as well. Look for him to throw a quick left jab, he'll throw an overhand right, and then the one thing I like about what he does is he'll throw some strikes and then he will change levels for takedowns. He'll throw a strike and almost dive on a takedown at the end of his striking technique. Now, conversely, he can get a little bit too over-aggressive, pushing forward to engage, throw some spinning attacks, which, hey, it's kind of 50-50 risk-reward. Sometimes they land, sometimes they don't, and they can cost a lot of energy, and they can also put you out of position. Ask Chael Sonnen. Now, his cardio has looked decent in longer fights. He's still pushing forward. He's still leading a lot of the exchanges. But again, like I said, when you're as aggressive as he is, it can cost you if you don't find that happy medium. Now, that loss to Nicholson, certainly, he got himself knocked out, was the cut to middleweight a little bit draining. His chin at 205... how's it going to hold up? We haven't really seen him crack with a lot of big shots, but against some bigger hitters, that should change. We'll see how it holds up. Now, for Blachowicz, he is fighting at home, and a lot of times that motivates fighters. But against Jimmy Manuwa, he came out very flat in that fight, did not look overly good. But conversely, when he fought Alexander Gustafsson, he showed excellent striking technique early and forced the former title challenger to take him down to avoid the exchanges. Blachowicz has some pop in his hands, 5 wins by knockout. He has a decent submission game, 7 submission wins. We haven't seen a lot of that in the UFC, though. 7-5 in the scorecards, and that's certainly a concerning record considering his recent struggles in that area. He has had some issues with volume. He lands 3.33 strikes per minute. Conversely, 3.73 strikes absorbed per minute, so his opponents are tagging him slightly more than he's able to hit them. He's not really an active striker. That's a big concern. Additionally, even bigger, his cardio is it's concerning. It's not strong, and his takedown defense is also a point of vulnerability. Corey Anderson and Jimmy Manuwa had a lot of success controlling him along the cage in the clinch position. It taxed his cardio. It put him in a negative, defensive position for the majority of those fights. Corey Anderson also, along with Alexander Gustafsson and Chris Cummins, why is his name escaping me at the moment? Durkin there, Cummins, used their wrestling to absolutely dominate Blachowicz on the mat. Between those three, they landed 11 combined takedowns over 3 fights. So that's pretty solid. The cardio factor, it's huge for Jan. He's lost 4 of 5 decisions. Struggled after going, against Patrick Cummins, after he went for some early takedowns in that, or after he hurt Cummins early in that fight, he started to slow down. Cummins started to land some takedowns and ultimately took over that fight because Blachowicz just gassed out. I think Clark simply is too active here. He's too quick. He has better cardio, and that speed over size is what I'm looking at here. Clark needs to be careful not to get cracked with something significant against Blachowicz. But simply, Jan has too many issues with the clinch and the takedown game and lacks the volume to make up for it, and the cardio really is not going to help him out either, especially in this longer fight. Clark needs to push, make sure he gets a clear decision to pull, and he doesn't want to make it, contentious at all, because if you go to the scorecards against a home fighter, you could be in some trouble. But my prediction is Devin Clark to defeat Jan Blachowicz by decision. Our co-main event of the evening it should be a heck of a matchup, as Poland's own and the third-ranked fighter in the UFC women's strawweight division, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, with a current record of 10 wins and 2 losses, takes on the debuting Jodie Esquibel with a current record of 6 wins and 2 defeats. Now, Kowalkiewicz, Karolina, is coming off back-to-back losses to the current champion, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and of course, former title challenger Claudia Gadelha, probably the number 1 and 3 fighters in the division, thanks to Jessica Andrade, who I picked to absolutely take out Claudia Gadelha, and I was correct. Take it. Karolina was submitted by Claudia Gadelha in his last fight, and that's that post-title fight letdown scenario that I talk about a lot. It certainly got her. For Esquibel, and I'm probably butchering that name, she went 4-2 under the Invicta banner. She was submitted by Alex Chambers, who we know from The Ultimate Fighter. She had decision loss to Alexa Grasso as well mixed in there, and she lost via split decision in her season, The Ultimate Fighter, in a qualifying bout against Ashley Yoder. Physically, both girls 5'3". Esquibel is a year younger than Karolina. Now, for Kowalkiewicz, she is a high-volume striker, throws good combinations. She has a nice left jab, will mix in a straight right, work uppercuts as well. I like the way she throws elbows at range. She'll throw some nice side kicks, and she can counter-strike as well. One of the most effective techniques we'll see out of her is that she will finish her combinations with a variety of different techniques. One time it's a low kick, next it's a high kick. She'll mix in a knee. She varies. It keeps her opponents guessing and very much on the defensive. The big issue with KK is she tends to be a bit of a slow starter. She has been outstruck in each of the opening round of each of her first four UFC fights, and she was submitted in her last. So none of the first round has not been kind to her in her career. But the good thing is she tends to pick up the pace and become stronger as the fight goes. Against Rose Namajunas, she was pushing forward very effectively. She was pushing forward, I don't want to say very effectively, pushing forward and not engaging enough. She was getting cracked with some big shots, and certainly you're walking right into the line of fire. You better do something about it. She tends to be cracked at range a little bit. Where she did turn that fight in her favor was the clinch position. That tends to be her best position. She's a close range striker when she's doing things most effectively. Control her opponent's head, attack off the break, land knees to the body. That really took a lot of the fight out of Rose in that matchup. We saw her use a lot of elbows in the clinch, the knees, short punches. She simply took away Rose's wind in that fight. When she fought Joanna, she had her moments, showed how tough she was, but it was not enough offense. Now, her takedown defense overall has been pretty decent. She gave up 2 takedowns against Rose early on, one against Randa Marcos and got her back taken, and against Claudia, and ultimately that cost her the fight. Now, for Esquibel, she has 1 win by knockout, 5-1 in the scorecards, 1 submission loss as well. And that 1 KO that she picked up came way back in her pro debut. 3 of her last 4 decision victories have all come by split decision, which certainly sets off a red flag, telling us she has some issues distancing herself from her opponents in close fights. She's built well. She looks like a powerhouse. She comes from a boxing background, but she went 7-7 as a professional boxer. It's not an overwhelmingly awesome record, but still it's experience to build on. In the MMA footage I've seen of her, not a strong volume striker. She throws a left jab. Her combinations at times looks a little bit her combos look a little bit forced. I generally speaking wasn't that impressed with her striking technique. She'll mix in some low kicks, but she likes to close the distance and clinch, or she'll shoot. She'll look for takedowns, land some strikes, and again change levels and shoot on her opponent. I do like the way she tends to try and trap her opponent's strikes and then close that distance, creating that contact early on and push her opponent into the cage. But at the same time, I've seen her have some major issues on the mat. I would think against Karolina, she's not going to have to deal too much with being taken down, and this fight should be played out at a place that she feels comfortable with. That being said, Karolina is fighting at home. She's coming off back-to-back losses, so she certainly is motivated. She needs to get off to a good start here. She needs to shake that mantra of being a second-round fighter, somebody who doesn't do well in the opening round. Look for her to have success in the clinch, land some big strikes, really take away that boxing aspect, that boxing game that Esquibel is going to look to rely on. And, once this fight starts advancing beyond the opening round, I think Karolina picks it up. She gets stronger. She'll use that clinch position to really break her down, turn those knees over, drive him into her midsection. Esquibel has, as I said, she's had issues in close fights, and that's not going to bode well for her fighting a Polish fighter in Poland. And ultimately, what it comes down to is just execution. Karolina will do a better job, and she'll have the home crowd on her side. So my prediction is Karolina Kowalkiewicz to defeat Jodie Esquibel by decision. In the main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's welterweight division. As former UFC lightweight title challenger, the 6th-ranked Donald Cowboy Cerrone, 32 wins, 9 losses, and 1 no contest, takes on undefeated rising British star Darren Till with a current record of 15 wins, no losses, and a single draw. Now, Cerrone has lost back-to-back fights for the first time in his professional career. It's hard to believe with the quality of opposition he's been facing, how long he's been fighting. He's never been beaten consecutively until now. It ended a 4-fight winning streak. He was close to earning himself a shot at the welterweight title. For Darren Till, he is undefeated in the UFC, 3 wins, no losses, and a draw. That draw coming against Nicholas Dalby in a fight he was ahead, and then Dalby climbed back into. This is a massive step up in competition for Darren Till. He's been facing primarily other European prospects in the UFC, where now he's facing a top-end fighter like Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Cerrone 1 inch taller, Till will have a 1 inch reach advantage, and the Brit is 9 years younger than Cowboy. Now, we know Donald Cerrone. We know what he's all about. He's that lethal Muay Thai striker. He throws exceptionally hard kicks, good combination striker, dangerous at range or in close. He'll work hard knees, that push kick. He'll go low. He'll go to the middle. He'll go to the midsection. He'll throw body kicks. Everything he does is just it's very fucking effective when it lands. He sets up his kicks. He's shown that by targeting other areas. His opponents start to cover up. Against Jim Miller, we saw that targeting the body before landing that brutal head kick to knock him out. Against Rick Story, it was that ridiculous series of combinations to eventually put him down, attacking the body, going to the head, and finishing with a head kick. Just incredibly accurate, very quick, and just beautiful to watch. When he fought Matt Brown, it was all about speed and variety. Low kicks, he went to the body at times, go high with kicks, quick punches, and eventually Brown didn't know where. He had taken so much damage, he partly didn't know where to defend, and he was certainly incapable of defending when Cerrone landed that finishing blow. Now, on the negative side for Cowboy, he has struggled at times with the boxing of his opponents. Eddie Alvarez had a lot of success early. Nate Diaz ultimately picked up a victory a number of years ago. RDA's had a lot of success, taking him out, hurting him to the body. He's had that issue with the midsection. We talked about the bike accident in the past. And guys like Anthony Pettis and Rafael dos Anjos have had a lot of success targeting that area and hurting him. When he fought Masvidal, he got cracked and taken out, counter left right hook combination from Jorge that eventually put him down. And the aggression of Robbie Lawler got Cerrone on his back foot, took him out of his comfort zone, and really put Robbie up in that fight and helped him to eventually corral the victory. One area that we haven't, we sometimes talk about with Cerrone, he's improved his wrestling significantly. We know he's a fantastic grappler. He's a submission machine, incredibly talented from both top and bottom position, but he has really improved his wrestling and shown he can take guys down, change levels, and forces them to defend another area. That's something we haven't seen in the last fight or two because he hasn't looked, he's been facing opponents that have been putting it to him, but that's something I think we can see Cerrone look to do here against Darren Till. Now, for Till, this is his third fight of 2017. He missed all of 2016, so the activity rate, pickup, increase in activity is going to be huge for him. He has 9 wins by knockout, lots of left side offense. He throws a lot of his strikes from the left side, straight lefts, right hooks, right overhand right. He tends to be a little bit too predictable, but it can be effective if he connects. When he fought Bojan Velickovic, he dropped him early with a short left along the cage, eventually putting him down. That fight went to decision, but he was certainly having the more impactful strikes early in that matchup. He was very confident in that fight. He's young, very confident. He was shaking off Velickovic every time he landed anything and baiting him into throwing more techniques. Confidence is good. Being overconfident, though, could be an issue against a guy like Cerrone, who's an absolute fucking killer. There were times, though, with Darren Till, he tends to start to struggle as the fight progresses. He doesn't land nearly as many strikes. His leg kicks come up short. He swings and misses, and his cardio starts to disappear. He's not an overwhelming volume striker to begin with. His UFC best, he's done it twice, 49 significant strikes. He likes to sit back and wait on his opponents at times, and against Donald Cerrone, you do not want to do that. As I said, he tends to fade in the later stages of matchups. That allowed Nicholas Dalby to get back in his fight. Velickovic also climbed back into that matchup, made it a little bit closer than expected, a lot of people expected it to be. And Bojan was hitting with some good strikes in that matchup as Till started to slow down and become more vulnerable. For Cerrone's got some big fight experience. He's only gone 5 rounds once, but he's fought some big guys on big stages, so this will be nothing new for him. For Darren Till, main event, fighting a big-time opponent. This is a massive fight, and you have to wonder how he's going to rise to the occasion, or if he's going to rise to the occasion. Till, I said, he tends to fight, and Cerrone's going to feast on. Till tends to fade, and Cerrone's going to absolutely feast on that. Cerrone is simply too good a fighter. If your cardio is not where it needs to be, Cowboy's going to push you, and he's eventually going to, he's not going to push you, but he's going to exploit you, and he'll eventually land something significant. I think Cowboy has too many weapons here, and he can counter-strike, and that's going to be huge. If Till becomes too predictable with that left side offense, Cerrone will eventually find something to do, land. Watch for Cerrone to use his wrestling, potentially to throw off Till and force him to defend multiple avenues. And ultimately, my prediction is Donald Cerrone to defeat Darren Till by TKO. So those are my 4 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 118, which again goes down in the afternoon, depending on where you're located. At least in Canada, it goes down about 3 p.m. The main card does. All of my preliminary predictions, as per usual, available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. So I certainly encourage you to go check those out. It should be a very fun, fight card. We got some European prospects because some other guys on the prelims. Lots of prelim fights to break down, which we'll have to get to ASAP. Certainly consider buying the bet packs. I know the last one wasn't great. We'll see. Look to try and turn that around this time around. And again, I'm exhausted right now. I can feel myself fading at the moment. Physical exertion, people. Gotta love it. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you as always for tuning in. I greatly appreciate everyone who tunes in to listen to me. And yeah, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.